Well, good morning, everybody. So nice to see you guys here. Who did the run this morning? Anybody? No? Okay, I didn't either. That's all right. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about facilitating emergence. I'm going to start off with some basic statistics that might scare you a little bit, maybe not though. And then Dr. Lucas is going to talk a little bit, and then Dr. Nance is going to get into some of the things that you guys might find really beneficial. So first, let's talk about the statistics, one of my favorite topics. So how many young adults are living with their families? Ugh, I know, I heard some people grunt. Quite a few. So if we look at all 18 to 24-year-olds, about 65% of them are living at home. Now this is kind of an old statistic, it's from 2011, right? So we can only guess that's probably a little bit higher today. So if we look at college graduates, that statistic's a little bit better, right? 45%, but that's still 50% of college graduates when they're done with college are moving back home and living back home until they can find a job. Now, normally by the time they're 34, most of them have found a job, but still 1 in 5 are still living at home. Do you guys want your son or daughter to be living with you when they're 34 years old? No. So there are a couple things that we'll talk about today, and there are even a couple things that you guys can do now that could help them in the future. So almost 50% of our students are expected to be supported financially by their parents for up to 2 years after graduation while they're looking for a job. So expect that they're going to expect a little bit of financial support while they're looking for a job. And 36% of parents say that they expect to support their children. Do you guys expect to support your kid after they graduate? I see some people that are like, yes, and some people are like, no, this is it. That's all right. About 50% of recent college graduates say that they are receiving some type of financial help from their family. Either they're still living at home or their parents are paying their car insurance or something like that. But they are getting help even though they have a full-time job. I know that's really depressing, isn't it? So the New York Times reports that 20% of people in their 20s and early 30s are currently living at home with their parents. So 1 in 5 are still living at home. Now there are a couple things that your child can do now that will help increase their chances of finding a job after college, and one of those things is getting the right degree. So if we look at biology and life sciences and fine arts, 2 majors that we offer here, about 45% of those that are 22 years old and have their biology degree, they're living at home. But by the time they're 30, that's only 13%. Fine arts is roughly the same. So not too bad in terms of the statistics. So business and CIS, how many of you have sons or daughters that are majoring in business or computer information system? All right, so again, roughly the same statistics. So 50 right after college, or 40% for CIS, that's a little bit better. And then about 15 or 10% by the time they're 30. So those degrees are pretty good. All right, now let's talk about humanities and psychology. Right? Not quite as good, 15%. But even with psychology and human services and humanities, it's still not bad. So we know that picking the right college degree is incredibly important for them to find a job afterwards. So it's something that right now with your son or daughter, you guys can sit down and talk to them, find out what they're interested in, actually look at their job prospects, look to see if they have to go to graduate school, things like that in order to get a good job. All right, any questions about the stats of this? No? Are you guys really freaked out right now, or are you okay? No? Okay. All right, good. So, yeah, go ahead.
On the previous chart, one of them, CIS, it looks like it either flat lines out at the end or starts to go back up. What's going on there?
Just flat lines out.
Okay.
So it stays about 15% if you're 28, 29, 30, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just depends. Depends on the major. All right, any other questions? No? All right, well, I'm done. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lucas.
Many of my students from time to time in class, especially when we start the semester, will actually raise their hand and ask me, is it okay to go to the bathroom? And you know, I really respect that. And when we think about emerging adulthood, it's like, wow, I wonder how they feel about asking me if they can go to the bathroom. So what I do is I, frankly just smile a little bit and say, not to worry, and you're an adult, it's okay. After that, I generally don't have too many students that are raising their hand. So somebody always takes the fall for the rest of the students. But amongst the classes that I teach, I do teach critical thinking. So critical thinking, obviously, is something that we all need. In many domains of our life, we may be thinking very well, but in some domains, we may not be. So in the decision-making process, we're always working, with our students to make better decisions. In emerging adulthood, you would say to yourself, I hope my kid graduates and gets a job and makes some good decisions along the way, right? Two theorists that I think of as a professor and a clinician is Emergence, which is, he gave us the psychosocial stages of development. And one particular stage that I think of is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Emergence gave us the developmental stages because he says that we have to go through those. If we master the task, then we're successful. If not, we get stuck. Also think of Albert Bandura with social cognitive theory. And he did not give us a personality theory, but what he did give us is the self. The self is an active agent. And that self actually interacts with others. And the hope is that they're able to control their outcomes. In other words, just feel good about what's going on. Maybe just walk away and say, well, that conversation went really well. In my class, I will give this assignment to my students. So I actually want to let you be privy to that because it has a lot to do with their autonomy and independence. And I actually give this assignment after they've been on Christmas break or spring break. So let's look at what the students have to work with. Home sweet home. After a long, tough finals week, Sophia has completed her freshman year of college. She can't believe how fast the year went. She made many new friends and experienced the freedom of independence, living away from her parents for the first time in her life. Now it's summer break and Sophia is returning home to work for a local restaurant. All she wants to do during the break is work, go to the gym, and hang out with her old high school friends. Sophia's parents are very strict and they like to know where she is at all times. They also enjoy having her at home to spend time with the family and stress the importance of academics and getting good grades. In high school, Sophia often had to stay at home at nights when her friends were getting together. When Sophia was allowed out, she had to return home before her parents went to bed at midnight. Sophia has gotten used to the freedom of the college. However, she's 19 now, after all. She enjoys being spontaneous, making her own choices, not having to report her coordinates to her parents at all times, and staying out late. That being said, she has still been able to maintain over a 3.7 cumulative GPA in her first year at college. Several days after returning home for break, Sophia's best friend from high school decides to host a reunion. Sophia works from 10 to 4 p.m. at the restaurant, heads to the gym, and it makes it home in time for dinner at 6 p.m. At the dinner table, Sophia tells her parents she is going to the reunion party in a couple of hours. While Sophia loves to be spontaneous, her parents love to schedule out their plans well ahead of time. They inform Sophia that they've planned a family night and that she needs to be home to spend time with her younger siblings.
Trouble.
The conversation turns into argument. Sophia claims she is now independent and now can make her own decisions. Her parents state that while she is still living under their roof, she needs to listen to their judgment. They stress they are not being fun police, but are emphasizing family values. If Sophia would have told them ahead of time, they claim they would have let her go. Sophia pretends to go to bed upset and sneaks out to go to the party. 1, should Sophia have snuck out to go to the party? 2, have you ever snuck out of your home? 3, is Sophia independent? 4, should she be able to make her own decisions at home? 5, is it fair for Sophia's parents to ask her to plan ahead of time? Or should she be allowed to continue her spontaneous nature? 6, is there a point of compromise? So you can tell by this that there's likely a lot of good discussion in my classroom. But at the same time, obviously all students do not fit into those questions, right? But they all seem to be able to remark to that. But given that, I always ask my students to write a letter to their parents about how much autonomy and independence that they expect. And so what I would like to do is just read a couple of letters to you that my students gave me with no names, right? And just to give you an idea of how they think and how they feel.
Excuse me, what year are these? Are these freshmen or students?
These were freshmen,
Okay.
Yes ma'am. Okay. Dear Mom and Dad, before you drive down to get me for the holidays, I would like to address thoughts on my autonomy and independence at home. I have had time to think about what I expect while I'm at home during these times. I have become used to freedom this freshman year. I want to start making choices on my own. I would like you both to begin to think about not referring to the house as your house, but to begin to think of it as our house, as I'm not an adult. I can't afford a house right now, but when you refer to this house, it makes me feel like a child. In some ways, this also makes me feel angry and guilty. I'd rather talk about this in advance so you can begin to see my side. I have been able to make food choices here at Beacon every day. I would like to continue this at home and not be judged on what I eat and how much I eat. As a young adult, I feel this is now my decision. I enjoy singing and listening to music. I know this may irritate you, but it's something I really enjoy. I would like to be able to sing in my room without anyone commenting on it. There are just some ideas that I've come up with about my autonomy and independence during my first semester away at college. I love you both so much and appreciate what you've done for me in my life. I know that the rules you set are to prepare me for the real world. I wanted to be able to write to you about how I was feeling as I began my new college life.
Wow.
That's powerful, isn't it? Very powerful. Okay. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing you this letter to ask for some ground rules to set when I get home for the holidays in summer regarding my freedom and restrictions. I know that you want me to hang out with family, and I get that. I'm going to put my family first. With that, I was hoping to spend a couple of days with my grandparents too. I will see what works for them and get back to you once I know. Furthermore, I need to ask you permission to let me have a few days during which I hang out with my friends. If you have plans, just let me know the dates and I will work around them. I also want to know if I could have tickets to the Panthers, Hornets, or Knights games. That would be a blast of family fun. And yes, I will be able to watch my brother for you guys. I would like to have a couple of video games purchased for me as payment. While living on my own, I had a later bedtime than you are accustomed to. I hope you don't mind if I am staying up 12 or 1 a.m. sleeping in the mornings. The only other question I have is, can I use your car, Dad? Well, if not, I understand. Mom is reading this and is putting her foot down now. For me, it was worth the ask. Anyway, I can't wait to come home and see you guys. I love you, your son. These were not sent to the parents. You know, they were for me. But what I will tell you, there were many. I had 3 critical thinking classes, and the theme that came through all of the letters for parents were love and appreciation. And what I know from being a clinician and a professor is that we all seek for that self-efficacy. We all want to be able to learn to control our outcomes. And we all need to be able to walk away and feel like that we've preserved our autonomy and our independence in the process. So thank you very much.
So this is what we're doing at Beacon right now, right? So we have a really excellent graduation rate, 83%. So we're also going to help your students, find internships. So 100% of our graduates gain some type of experience through internships. So as professors, we help our students find internships. I just helped one of my students find a great internship working at a virtual company. I know that Dr. Nance has helped them. We have a person on staff that's all she does is help students find internships. So we're doing everything that we can to help your students succeed. Okay, back to Dr. Nance.
Okay. This is a hot topic for all parents that have what used to be adults. Dr. Luke's talked about Erickson stages of development. They always had adolescence and then adulthood. Well, we have now what has developed into emerging adulthood, which to me is just like protracted adolescence. The emerging adults aren't emerging. And some of the emerging adults aren't adults, in their functioning. So their prefrontal cortex right up here is still developing until they're 25 years old. So, we know that they can learn something, know something, be really smart, understand what you're telling them about something that requires caution, but in the moment, they don't have much to resist impulse. That didn't matter when we were 25. We had the same kind of brain. Just saying. Think about what you were doing at that age and before that with this little tiny prefrontal cortex. So I understand it, I buy it, I think we can do some things about it, but I don't really think that that's a good thing that needs to limit people's ability to leave home. So I really consider emerging adulthood to be protracted adolescence. We have still things to teach them, they still have things to learn, still need to give support. Humans aren't like any other species. You would never see a little bird nest, and after the last bird flies out, the mother bird winging them back, That's not going to happen. We're supposed to prepare them to go. Birds know this, other species do, but we've kind of slipped in our ability to push them along. So the rest of the story, we have 1.2 million dropouts per year. There are boomerang kids, more 18 to 34-year-old kids living with parents than with partners. And the boomerangs are the ones that they left and then they came back. Some came back with other little boomerangs with them. Grandparents are raising grandchildren more and more and more and more for a lot of reasons. Their boomerangs with kids came back. A young kid had a child. Their parents are incarcerated, their parents are addicted, or their parents are deployed. So grandparents have quite a burden, and grandparents are younger. We're talking about people that are still working and now have, kids at home to raise. So that the grandparents have taken up a huge, kind of absorbed a lot of these emerging adults. In other countries, this is a good thing. In other countries, the generations live together. I mean, that kind of solves things about child care and elder care. You're real supported. Our culture is different. Our culture started out differently. Our holiday is Independence Day. We prize autonomy more than anything. So it's easy to feel like a failure if you're the kid that hasn't achieved autonomy. That's part of what needs to be achieved. But it's not necessarily a failure. And I tell people a lot of times, that's just because we're here that you're feeling that. You wouldn't feel that someplace else. It would just be life. So why is adolescence persisting? I think development requires crisis. Erickson thought so. No pain, no gain. So I think a lot of lessons aren't being learned because there are a lot of buffers for kids. I don't know anybody's position on things like participation trophies. I see somebody shaking their head and sighing. I can hear you sighing back there.
They should all go in the trash. It does nothing for their self-worth.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the
It just takes its space in the shelf.
Yeah, you are so right, and that's mastery builds self-esteem, not participation. Mastery, and so no pain, no gain. Does that mean that efforts shouldn't be rewarded? Of course they should, but you're rewarding the effort, and you're not saying that not getting here gets you here. It just doesn't. It doesn't fit. So I think we're indulgent in that. Identity versus role confusion for adolescents. Well, it used to be they didn't have too many choices. You're going to go to school or get a job or go in the military. So what was in your rest of your identity be kind of formed around that. But identity statuses, the perfect identity status is they achieve their identity and they move along out of the nest. Those are achieved through both exploration, checking out what there is, and then committing to something. You've all gone through the process. We all have. A failure to do any exploration at all is what they call foreclosure. It's a compliant kind of foreclosure. It's like, whatever you tell me I'm doing, I'm doing. You got a family business, you want me in it? Okay, I'm in it. Without giving it thought, which a lot of times can pile up to resentments later, or somebody just getting kind of stuck. A failure to commit, we call that the moratorium. They'll explore all day. They'll go to college forever if you pay for it. They're not committing to anything, though. They're just kind of there, exploring. My husband said that after his son came home the first year from college, he said, "I think I'm going to take the summer to ponder."
Was that your husband or the son?
My husband's son. He told his dad that he thought he'd take the summer to ponder. Yeah, and Dad told him what other things he'd be doing while he was pondering. He said, "You ponder all you want. You go to work, punch in, and then ponder away, because you're not pondering here." Failure to do either one of those things really is a failure to launch. If somebody's not even thinking about the future, they're not willing to explore, they're not even thinking about a commitment to anything else, they're going to stay there as long as you let them. If you just change out the sofa once in a while, for them. And I think it's, I don't think it's adequately addressed. I think we make excuses like, well, there aren't jobs out there. But I would say, I don't know about you, I'll bet a lot of people in here did work 2 jobs in. You can't get a job that you'll make it, get another job, not go home. I don't know that that's necessary all the time. And I think it's okay to keep kids around for a while and to give them some support. And I certainly have to say, like we've done it, and some of my friends have done it. And I think it just takes longer to get them ready. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's when there's nothing happening. So like somebody's got to go first. So kids with failure to launch, lack of vision. If you want them to go and you say, you really need to go, you got to get out of here. You're going to have to do something for yourself. I don't want to think that, that you're not going to be okay if I'm not here to take care of you. And those are all good messages. But if you think about how you teach a kid to hit a ball, you don't put them here, here's your hand. Okay, the ball's going to come and drop here. You don't say that. You want to imprint that you're going to hit the ball, and you give them the vision. So even in the smallest thing, you put your eye on the goal. They lack that vision. I don't know. I think probably parents can see so much for them, and it's almost like their sight, some of them, stops right there. They can't process it. What you see is that they're so capable of. A lack of interpersonal skills, and therefore a lack of connections. I think I'm lucky. I have like 46 years of being a therapist and like 20 of teaching, and I really like to put interpersonal skill building in the classroom as much as I possibly can. And I see kids try things and do them a little bit awkwardly, but eventually learn them, and they do make their connections. A lack of life skills, just not knowing how to get around, how to, I think if nobody else ever ordered the pizza, we got people that aren't going to pick up the phone and like, oh no, you go ahead, you order it. I see them do it. But the other life skills, how to knock on doors and generate a job for yourself. That would be a skill. I think a lot of people have that. Beat the pavement. They don't even know what that means. I mean, that is saying went away. There aren't too many people that beat the pavement anymore. The skills that they need, decision making. And to help them and really scaffold them through decision making, really giving them the steps to it, is so much more useful than I know the right choice, but them getting to it is equally important. Problem solving. They've all grown up with seeing something that has the ability to start all over, reboot. You know, if everything's going wrong, unplug everything, turn it off, unplug everything, wait a while. Well, you know, people don't work that way, and most of us didn't really have that in how we think of processing things. That, oh, well, we'll just stop for a while. So problem solving, and again, that vision that problems can be solved. You know, I know with adolescents, the ones that become suicidal, that I always think those are the easiest ones, because with most adolescents, they're stuck on a problem, and as soon as they start working out a solution, they're good to go. You know, so I've seen that so many times. So problem-solving skills, self-soothing. I'm sure that somebody in here, just in their brain, said, "I need that." The ability to calm themselves down. And I ask people to kind of bump, I'll share it with you. I ask people to kind of bump down the intense emotions that stand in our way. A lot of times I get people who come into the office and they're like, "Oh, I'm so depressed." And they tell me what's going on. And I say to them, "Would disappointment cover this situation? Does it require depression?" Sometimes disappointment's enough. Same with anger. Do they have to come in a rage? Would it be enough to be annoyed? If somebody cut in front of you, do you have to like be homicidal? Not necessary. Annoyed is fine. It covers it. When people are scared, they go, I'm having a panic attack. How about just being concerned? Would that work? For a lot of situations, you could just be concerned. You could still be vigilant if you want to, but you don't have to put your body through the panic attack. So just giving people the idea that we're not a flip switch. Everything is on a dimmer switch, and anything can be. So their capacity to self-soothe. And again, that's something that I teach them. If I'm teaching about anxiety, I'm also teaching them how to do balanced breathing. So because I know so many of our students do have anxiety. That's the most common thing that's treated in everybody. So, and a lot of our students have just, school hasn't been felt that safe for them. So self-soothing techniques. Another reason of failure to launch, a sense of entitlement. Just wait for the folks to go in a nursing home, and then I'll just keep all this stuff. What's your plan? Inherit? I guess that's a vision. Its own perverse way. Okay. So how do you help? Contingencies work. You tie increased freedom at home to increased expectations. You probably already do that. You've probably done that when they were younger. Now you're doing it with adults. So a little bit more play to it. Algorithms. Offer the steps of the problem-solving process. Well, the first step is this. Go do that, and then come back and show me what you have. Oh, good. I'll show you what the second step is. Go do that, and come back. So giving them the formula. Referrals. The buck can stop somewhere else. You don't have to take care of everything. And you can. I mean, that's the problem that we're, as parents, if you got your kids in college, you're capable parents. So it's, really easy when they need that last, can I get 30 more bucks, to say, ask somebody else, shovel some snow, go right past this checkpoint, once in a while. They don't know what's past the checkpoint, if they haven't, if you always let the buck stop here, or they're asking for a buck stop here in that case. Model being autonomous. People have wonderful, I don't think I've ever sat down and talked to a parent that didn't have like a wonderful, rich history and strengths, and those aren't always the things that we put out to our kids. People have, like really great careers, but they go home and they're just mom, or dad. But demonstrating your own autonomy, that there are some times that even though you're upset with them, you're like, what, well, I was going to go get an ice cream, I'll catch up with you later. Not that you're needy and have to stay there and solve that right now and you can't stand to break away. That doesn't give the message that you can step back, solve some things for yourself, and then come back in. So you can model all of this stuff. Have and share in a vision for yourself. what's your kid's imagination about what's going to happen if they leave? Do they think your life stands still? No, you do your traveling, you do that other career you wanted to do, So letting them know that you have a vision beyond their adulthood as well. Balance your own life. And these are things to remind me. The little symbols, that's just to remind me to tell you. We made I have something for you. Our faculty and learning specialists and a lot of people were willing to give me some statements about what they were seeing about this topic and about the students that they work with. So I've kind of put it together for you. But one of the things in it, I'll just flip on over, is a little exercise that shows, and we've got the do's and don'ts for you. Sure, everything's not, and the slides are in there. What we have is a little exercise for balancing your life. So, it's asking you what percentage of your life do you put into parenthood, partnership, professional life, and personhood? Is it a balance? So like a working mom, a lot of times it's 46% the job and 53% the kids. The partner is like some little squiggle of a percentage, and the mom isn't on the pie at all. There's nothing for personhood. So the balance is just really to make a goal to get the pie to look the way you want to. A lot of people it's so simple. I do it with the students as well, so that they have that idea of a balance. So we have those for you. Live mindfully. Frederick Perls, the old Gestalt therapy guy, said that we're all anxious automatons, that we live having regrets about the past and fears about the future. And his whole therapeutic approach was to teach people skills right here, right now. If you're not getting along with people, then let's see how we get along and let's process that as we go. That idea has never gone away. What are we talking about now? Living mindfully. That's positive psychology is about. This is, meditation is about being in the moment. Why not partake in that? And that's another thing that you model, to them. But really, you earned it. If you really think about it, if you got a kid this far, you've earned that. That you should just be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee on the back porch and have no one bother you for half an hour. That's not unreasonable. But I'll bet there are people that feel guilty when they do it. Like, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. That's that anxious automaton part of you. Come back to right now, you're good. And be well. The things that, take care of yourself, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that makes all the difference in the world. Because kids get anxious when you're anxious, And I've had the same experience as Dr. Lucas when I teach family. My little first day poll that I take is, who are the people in your immediate family? What would you change about your family? And probably 75% of them say nothing. My parents are wonderful. They take such they're always there. I can call anytime. Very, very few of them, and the things that they say they would change are, a lot of them, I wish I had a better relationship with my brother or sister. So I do have that same experience. Some things we know about kids, they don't really tell you how important you are to them. We do studies about sexual behavior, and you ask kids what influences you the most. They say, well, I want to please my parents. So they put that ahead of peer pressure, of hormones, of everything. Well, I want to please my parents. So the kids that stay on track, a way that you would want them to, they want to please you. And anytime I tell my students that, they say, that can't be true. Blind poll, anything can be true. And that's what I have to say about that. And I guess I would, call my colleagues up here. Do you have questions for us? Is there anything else we can tell you, do for you? We're kind of like at the end of our time, but we wanted to leave time for you. Everybody's good? I'm going to pass out the books, or if anybody wants them.
I do have a question.
Okay.
My biggest concern, at least with my son, and I'm sure other parents have here, is about encouraging and motivating your kids to want what we want for them without being that, forward pushing mom. And I guess that's my concern is, you can't succeed if you don't set goals and you don't have a path to see it. But all that being said, if there's no drive behind that, there's no force behind it where it's motivating you to get to those goals, how do you help them?
And I like your choice of words was want. I don't know that a lot of them know how to want because everything's provided. If you can't get it, you get a virtual one of it and you feel like you've got it. So maybe that's the first step is letting them want for something. I think that's probably the first step to it. And enjoying their successes in that. That it never stops being the case that if you reinforce something, it's going to happen over and over again. I tell people that all the time. You say, take out the trash, take out the trash, take out the trash. And when they take out the trash, instead of saying thanks, because they shouldn't necessarily need a thank you, you say, it's about time. Well, that's not a reinforcement. And people say, well, but they should just take it out without a thanks. And my thing back to them, do you want them to take out the trash or do you want to be right? At some point in time, you got to sacrifice something to teach the lesson. So, and you say thank you, and the reinforcement works so much better than barking at them even when they did the right thing eventually. And it is annoying. So I don't know if that's at all helpful, but just that reinforcement. So, the other thing you said is making them what you want for them. You might say that meaning this broad thing, like a wonderful success and to be happy. They think that means you want to choose their career and their partner and name their kids. So making sure they know when you say what you want for them, that you tell them the wonderful things that you do want for them, and that they don't, I guess maybe we'll blame that on the prefrontal cortex, but ours was okay. So, yeah.
Question. You were saying how important self-soothing is, or being able to, manage your own emotions and so on. And I think about that a lot because, when I was Will's age, 17 or whatever, I did a lot of reading. I would go hang out in the library, and I also did a lot of walking or riding my bike. Those were the two things I did to get out of the house, go somewhere else, change my mind. I did that anytime I could. Well, he doesn't really do those things. So it's like when he's tense or whatever, and I try to think of something to suggest, I'm at a loss. What else do kids do that they can get out, move their body or something? We suggest going to the little exercise room with the treadmill and the weights and stuff. But
If I'm that parent, and I don't have much to offer in the way of exercise because, it's not a big deal for me. But if I'm that parent, or if I'm the counselor that has that kid that's really tense, I say, let's go out and walk around for a minute. Let's talk about it for a minute. I need some air. You need the air. I need the air. Let's go out and talk about it for a minute. And then you're walking with them. The sunshine's good too. You get the vitamin D. Calming effect of that, and essentially you're teaching them how to work their body. You could reflect on it later, like, well, I always felt better after a walk. I don't know, and
we do that
let them know.
Together, and I always suggest it separately, but it seems like the only thing I can suggest. So I don't know what else you could do.
Our brain is different when we're writing than when we're fretting. So sometimes writing things down. Now, if I ask some 13-year-old girls to write something down, they come back with a poem and a song and a picture, Boys, not so much. But boys are pretty good at a list, or an illustration, however, whatever that person's interests are, to frame that in that way. But that really does slow, and I tell them exactly why I'm saying it. I say, if you get a free-floating thought in your head that you're thinking and it's running around and around and around, it's going to go around 100 times. But if you're writing it down, you've captured it. You can't write as fast as you can worry.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I tell people, if you're worrying too much, you're not worrying right. Dedicate some time, worry there. And for a lot of people, that works. So that's another thing. There's an app. There are some apps for their phone. I'm looking into one right now. It's called, and I'll just, it's I ran out of my head. Better, do you remember the name?
I remember you told me about it.
It'll be back. It'll be back in a minute. But it's a gaming designer that did it. She had a terrible bout with depression, and she put a game together. She said she had the depression from a concussion, so she had a bad head injury. It was it took time. She couldn't do anything. She wasn't allowed to read, write, nothing. And she said that's what got her so depressed. And she thought, I'm either going to die here, or I'm going to make a game out of it. Her app, you actually play it with other people. And she said she has a twin sister, and she said I called her first and said I made a game. Could you play it with me? And she said that was her only way that she felt like she could ask for help. But they have like little power-ups, like things to do for yourself. I have it on my phone. I'll know it in a minute. Yeah.
I imagine all the parents, we wouldn't have gotten our kids this far if we weren't helicopter parents, which is a terrible term, but it's a way of life. And how do we separate now? Because there are so many different separation things, physically, emotionally, as well as academically too.
I think if you talk about them right out loud and share your part in it, I'm used to always being able to hover over you. Now you go under the trees once in a while, and I lose sight of you, and that makes me anxious. It's not because I don't believe in you or trust you, but because I've been doing this long, and it's a habit. So, and I think kids appreciate it. I think they feel more like an adult when you tell them about your adult feelings and how you process things. That's a way for them to learn, and it gives them permission to say what they need to say. And you can sneak it in any place. Like if you schedule a talk, I don't like the scheduled talks. Kids like, parents seem to want to give a little lecture with a punchline, so they're working it up to the end. Then they lose the kid like right about here, So you have to do it more like a news story, something that you can cut at any place. The most important points first, so that you can stop wherever they stop. Whenever you feel like you're talking to a glazed donut, that's where to cut it. You know that. Sometimes when I teach in my class, I think it looks like 3 dozen glazed donuts in here. Then it's time. Everybody's kind of glossy. Yeah.
I also don't want to feel like a cruise director for the rest of my life. Like I'm always trying to get my child to live in the moment, because it's like, she's always, what's next? What's next? What's next? We're here now. And even if she's looking forward to that moment, 5 minutes after we're at that moment, it's what's next? What's next? What's next? And I'm like, trying to get her to think about what's next is good professionally and in her career, but that's not what she's, so trying to reel her back into the moment and also project what's next and what she thinks is next without me being the cruise director. I'm like, shuffleboard is not on the Leo deck anymore.
Well, I guess that's, to me, that what's next. Some people think it's part of ADHD. It's usually part of anxiety. You don't have to have any attention problems to be thinking. But a lot of people are trying to outrun their thoughts. They don't want to have a blank slate because, whatever pours in there. So again, writing, and maybe even the little balance thing, because you said something really important. You want her to be that way in a career,
I want her to be that way. I want her to do things for herself. But I don't want to be Julie McCoy. And shuffleboard is on the Lido deck at noon, no, I don't need to plan every move for you for the rest of your life. And you need to go out though, you need to go walk around and get a job, That's what's next.
And I think, and there's a point at which you're spent. And maybe that's what you say, well, I'm out of ideas for what's next, so you tell me what's next.
Yeah, but it's just like, she's always the what's next, but not in the right way.
Well, I think there are points in time that people have, when people have,
sense.
It does. When people have anxiety and they're left without a structure, they feel like a kite without a string.
It's almost, I'm not going to say it's failure to launch, it's kind of almost like failure to launch, but it's sort of,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's somewhat connected to that, I don't know.
Oh, it is. because she could be there forever saying what's next, or she could put her toe in the next thing, you know, and just kind of find her way. So that's another option. I guess if I was the counselor, I'd be saying, well, let's see what the paths are to the next thing, even if it's a little thing, you know, if you go to the mall, if you go bowling, if you stay home. And okay, you know, what's that all look like? So, and what it does is it makes them bored of asking what's next. It doesn't solve anything. For adults, it does. You know, if you're an adult, I'm going to say, what are you going to be doing in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years if you take this path or that path? But you're getting them ready to start to think that way on the short term, you know. And again, they'll get bored with it. You know, if you make them put too much information into it, they'll usually, you've trained them then and they pick up and go.
It's like, oh yeah, let's just play shovelware then.
Not again.
How do you get the boys? Because I have a girl that tells me everything, and then I have my son who's here, and a phone call once in a while just to say, I'm okay, would be wonderful. But you don't want to call him too often because then he feels like you're helicoptering. But you need, as a mother, I need that feel of.
Yeah, and I think on our end, a lot of times when people say they're avoiding their parents, I say, what, you know, well, they ask me questions, and I say, well, you're not calling in a prepared way. Why don't you call and ask how they're doing? That might be a different start. That gets a lot of laughs, like, what? You think they care? They haven't thought of it.
They call when they need money.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kids. That's
Right.
kids.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Got the books. If you want them, I'll just be here right when you